Hi, everybody. This is Allison from Allykatkreations. How is everybody? There is a wicked storm outside, and I would like to take this moment to offer all the love, light, strength, and healing to the Midwest United States. They were hit with really bad wicked tornadoes yesterday. I was watching a live stream all night long praying for these people because that does not happen in December, and EF5s are very rare and they don't happen often, and that's what I'm suspecting hit these people. And I'm giving them all my love and light because they need it right now. Sending prayers that way. So since my reincarnation video, I've been getting a lot of visions and a lot of like spirit nudges. We are being hit with a lot of energy right now. Whether or not we have good weather or not, you're still getting hit with those codes. And a few books popped out to me, like, you need to read this next. I don't follow along with certain things. I know I talk in videos, I'm going to do the next video and it's going to be awesome. And but sometimes spirit leads me to read things and there's a reason for it. So I'm just going to go off on that. Okay. For real, I don't, in all sincerity, I basically sit and meditate and get told where to go and what I need to divulge, because it's very important that we know from all perspectives things that are happening in our world right now, but understanding we've been lied to. Very much so. And that mythology isn't necessarily actually a myth, but maybe a story. So there's been a lot of news about the giants. And I have a really interesting theory that I'm working on. It's not defined yet. As there's so many different perspectives from different religions, different viewpoints. I just am tinkering with this. I will tell you what I'm thinking. I'm not concrete on it, and in no way, shape, or form, it's still like it's in its birthing stage of like me looking into it. But so we have the Norse all the way up in Norway, in Finland, in Germany, Sweden, Iceland, Northern Scandinavia, so far up there. Okay. Now we only know from what was written and either, chiseled out in stone. And for the Norse, a lot of their things were dictated by other cultures through spoken word. Whereas we have the Enuma Elish, which is taken off of tablets. We have scrolls written in Aramaic. We have in Greek. We have a lot of different things that have been building up through time. It's all perspective. And then we have the galactics. Like, it's crazy. But my theory, because it links together in my eyes, okay? And if you have comments, please contribute, because I'm just unfolding what I'm thinking. There's many of you who are brilliant that are starting to follow me, that are leaving brilliant comments. So please contribute. I would love that. And eventually when I get more subscribers, I will go live. Maybe I'll invite you to come and hang out with me and talk and just air out some really fun tidbits of fun things. So I believe, I'm forming my opinion on it, not necessarily believing in it, that the Norse had a lot of things pretty much on target with the Vedics. I necessarily believe that, of course, the extraterrestrials had a humongous role in our human meat suit, not our soul essence, but the meat suits we inhabit. I believe, like a lot of other people, that we are a mix of 22 alien races. We are aliens in my eyes, as in meat suit. I am forming that, like the Palladian, Lyran, there might be some other races within that. They formed and they came to that icy cold part of the world. Whereas I believe the Anunnaki, the Cedars, the Dracos, came down to what was Assyria and Sumeria, ancient Babylon. I believe that they inhabited there. Whereas in Egypt, the Law of One, Ra, and his social memory complex visited that area and influenced that area. And different cultural places around the planet were inhibited by different species of extraterrestrial life. And in that, we were created to be slaves. And in that slavehood, rubbed their DNA off, and then there was the hybridization, and then the baddies came, and then everything shifted. Now to unlock, we are starting to discover giants. And not that they weren't discovered, that information was hidden from humanity because they didn't want you to know what we are. So, and we're all in our own little way trying to unravel what we are. These giants, of course, aren't just originated in one area, they're all over the place. But I like the Norse take on the beginning of what they consider the beginning. And then I'm going to read two passages from two books, and then I'm going to go into the Enuma Elish. I'm not going to read, I only sectioned like the beginning. This is going to be a series of different videos. It's a lot to tackle. But I feel that a lot of like, oh, guys. There's a lot of people who don't research and don't look into certain things, or they are not culturally looking in every place, so looking in some places. There's a lot of people who never heard of the Enuma Elish. There's a lot of people who won't take the time to read Norse mythology because they think it's fake. And the same goes, I mean, and then that Norse mythology, Greek and Roman mythology are like hand in hand. For real. I believe that. Very similar. There's lots of gods, there's lots of powers, there's lots of things. And I think language was different in those times. Interpretations of words were different in those times. So it's up to us moving into a new era and age that we start going back and looking and as a collective formalizing these things together, because the history books have to be rewritten, guys, in all honesty. We were lied to. And if you tell me no, it's okay. Have an open mind, though. I believe we've been lied to. The darker forces are in control of this density. I'm being revealed my past lives slowly. I know, like I said in the other video, I have been, throughout my life, been shown certain things for a reason, and it was up to me to unlock what those reasons were. My past life with the stoning is from the time of Julius Caesar and Yeshua. So I need a QHHT session, guys, and I cannot. I'm still, I lost count of how many days I don't have income, but I would love to do that, to go back and go back and go back, because I know I lived a lot of lives. A lot of us have, and it's very interesting. But in Elena Danan's book, A Gift from the Stars, there is a race called the Norse, who are giants. They're Palladian. They're Lyran because they had the Lyran Wars with the Nebu and the Sikar. And they were in, I forgot exactly the constellation off the top of my head, but there was the Orion Lyran Wars. And then whoever was able to get away inhabited the Pleiades. And I mean, there's different races that inhibited the seven sister planets that we call the seven sisters. And Nor was one of them, and they're giants. So they do in other realms exist. And what I'm trying to piece together is not necessarily like, yes, we have the gods and there was this and things happen in a sequence, but maybe not. Maybe not. I think it's a very interesting topic to connect these beginning stories with extraterrestrials and to see it in that context, because it had to come from somewhere. And the people who wrote all the way back when, thousands of years ago, chiseled out these tablets and chiseled out these runes and all the languages. They either had to have a wild sense of an imagination to come up with some crazy ideas about this shit, or it's real. Like, we're very creative people. Yeah. But we have more of an expansive vocabulary than they did back then. How the hell did they come up with a lot of this stuff? So you really have to think, where did this shit come from? I hope you don't hear that. There's a lot of sirens going on. Before I start reading, I know I'm going off on a tangent and I'm sorry, but I just wanted to get my point across with this. We're moving into a different type of time. And we have to remember that we're one race. It doesn't matter what color you are. Doesn't matter what gender you are. Doesn't matter what you identify is, because we're all beautiful human souls. And spirit is with me because I don't know why I'm getting teary. I know why I'm getting teary. The last few days, a lot of people have passed over. And you could say it's the harvest that is incoming. People aren't realizing and putting two and two together what is making a lot of this happen. And it's emotional because a lot of people haven't prepared for what's to come. And it doesn't matter if you're religious, not religious, spiritual, not spiritual, into the ascension, not into the ascension, into the new earth, not into the new earth. If you don't notice that there is a lot of people leaving earth right now in death, I don't know what hole you're in. Climb out of it, please. Hang on, guys. I have to blow my nose. Sorry, guys. Don't need to blow my nose in front of everybody. I knew as a little girl, I have a really interesting ability. I don't know what to call it. If you know about it, please tell me. I haven't put a name to it, but I knew that my parents were going to die as a kid. I knew that before I hit 30, I thought before 30 I was going to lose both of them, but I lost my father when I was 22. And only 4 years into my 30s, my mom passed away. I knew it. And I mentally prepared myself, even though it still sucks and you still have to go through a lot of stress. I prepared myself mentally to hold my line and not to drop into an abyss. Mind you, it still sucks. And I'm in the abyss now for other reasons. But a lot of people don't know how to prepare mentally to do that. And I've been sensing a lot of departure on this planet. A lot of it. I just feel when that energy happens and I pick up on that death, and it's happening more and more each and every day. I'm praying there's no more soul matrix trap, that these souls had the contract or assignment, whatever you want to call it, that this was their time to leave, that they weren't ready to ascend. And whatever is going to happen, whether it happens or not, we all need to come together as a planet and as one species and stop dividing ourselves between race, color, and everything else under the sun. It's not helping anybody get forward. It's not. I'm sorry, it's not. We're all beautiful. All of us together as a humanity need to come together. All these extraterrestrials, interdimensional beings, whatever you want to call them, came down here out of whatever means they were. They all had a prime directive of like taking our resources, and Earth was, and it still is, abundant of a lot that other species need, whatever it is. They came here. And from that, all these stories were born. It had to come from somewhere. But just please take note. Please. We're in a very different type of time. We are at war. It's closing out soon. What side are you going to be on? I'm for humanity. I want to see everybody thrive. I don't want to have to repeat this life again, having to work my butt off for years and years. And yes, I'm still young. And then have it crash in front of me and be stolen away from me. I'm done. And a lot of other people too are suffering for no reason. For fear porn. Okay. Another book that's way better. But Neil Gaiman, Norse mythology. I have a lot. I have a whole bookshelf dedicated to this topic. But for the sake of everybody comprehending, because this is for people that really need to know the basics. I know it can get crazy, but bear with me. But because I know some people are going to be like, normie shit. But no. I like the phrasing here, and it's easy to comprehend. So I'm going to read the beginning and a little bit into it, and then I'm going to go to the other book. Before the beginning, there was nothing, no earth, no heavens, no stars, no sky, only the mist world, formless and shapeless, and the fire world always burning. To the north was Nephilim, the dark world. Here, elven poisonous rivers cut through the mists. Maybe it's a little... Okay, hang on, guys. Remember, I'm dyslexic, so sometimes I don't read the word right and I have to reread it, even though I read it 5 times before I did this video, just to make sure. But please, yes, understand, I don't see things like everybody else does. Here, 11 poisonous rivers cut through the mist, each springing from the same well at the center of it all. The warring maelstrom called, I'm going to try my hardest to get these words properly, Hevgilimir. Nephilim was colder than cold, and the murky mist that cloaked everything hung heavily. The skies were hidden by mist, and the ground was clouded by the chilly fog. To the south was Muspelheim. Muspel was fire. Everything there glowed and burned. Muspel was light, where Nephilim was gray, molten lava, where the mist world was frozen. The land was aflame with the roaring heat of a blacksmith's fire. There was no solid earth, no sky, nothing but sparks and spurting heat, molten rocks and burning embers. In Muspel, at the edge of the flame, where the mist burns into light, where the land ends, stood Sutur. Some people pronounce him Sutur. I don't know. Who existed before the gods. He stands there now. He holds a flaming sword, and bubbling lava and the freezing mist are as one to him. It is said that at Ragnarok, which is the end of the world, and only then, Sutur will leave his station. He will go forth from Muspel with his flaming sword and burn the world with fire. And one by one, the gods will fall before him. Sorry, guys, I had a power surge. Still annoying. Between Muspel and Nephilim was a void, an empty place of nothingness without form. The rivers of the mist world flowed into the void, which was called Ginnaganap, the yawning gap. Over time, beyond measure, these poison rivers in the region between fire and mist slowly solidified into huge glaciers. The ice in the north of the void was covered in frozen fog and pellets of hail. But to the south, where the glaciers reached the land of fire, the embers and the sparks from Muspel met the ice, and warm winds from the flame lands made the air above the ice as gentle and comfortable as spring day. Where the ice and the fire met, the ice melted, and in the melting waters life appeared, the likeness of a person bigger than the worlds, huger than any giant there will be or has ever been. This was neither male nor was it female, but was both at the same time. The creature was the ancestor of all the giants, and it called itself Ymir. Let's reread that. This creature was the ancestor, of all the giants, and it called itself Ymir. The ancestor of what? The Norse? The Pleiadians? The giants up there? Just a thought. Ymir was not the only living thing to be formed by the melting of the ice. There was also a hornless cow, more enormous than the mind could hold. She licked the salty blocks of ice for food and for drink, and the milk that ran from her four udders flowed like rivers. It was this milk that nourished Ymir. The giant drank the milk and grew. Ymir called the cow Audhumla. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong too. Please don't butcher me. I'm doing my best. Sorry, guys. The cow's pink tongue licked people from the blocks of ice. The first day, only a man's hair. The second, his head. The third day, the shape of a whole man was revealed. This was Buri, the ancestor of the gods. Uh-oh, I have a cat coming. Here she comes. Hi, Mommy. Are you going to show everybody your butt? I was moving everything so she can go to her actual spot. That's okay. So thinking about the days sounds like very familiar with something in a book that everybody in the world reads. Mama cat. Hey. Hi. Come on. Go lay down. Cats do what they're going to do, right? Ymir slept, and while it slept, it gave birth. A male and a female giant were born from beneath Ymir's left arm. A six-headed giant born from its legs. From these Ymir's children, all giants are descended. Buri took a wife from among these giants, and they had a son, whom they called Bor. Bor married Besla, daughter of a giant, and together they had 3 sons, Odin, Vili, and Vi. Odin and Vili and Vi, the 3 sons of Bor, grew into manhood. They saw as they grew far off the flames of Muspel and the darkness of Nephilim. But they knew that each place would be death to them. The brothers were trapped forever in Ginaganet, the vast gap between the fire and the mist. Ginaganet. I'm trying to rephrase a song. They might as well have been nowhere. There was no sea and no sand, no grass, no rocks, no soil, no trees, no sky, no stars. There was no world, no heaven, and no earth at the time. The gap was nowhere, only an empty place waiting to be filled with life and with existence. I'm pausing. Now, if anybody follows Hyperionism, it intrigues me because this goes into the nomadic mind, where it's just mind. And then it branches off. And it's like there's nothing. And then the thinking, the thought, the mentality disperses and then things start creating. There's like a parallel I have to connect there, but it was time for the creation of everything. V and Vili and Odin looked at each other and spoke of what was needful to do. There in the void of Gap, they spoke of the universe and of life and of the future. Odin and Vili and V killed the giant Ymir. It had to be done. There was no other way to make the worlds multiverse. This was the beginning of all things, the death that made all life possible. They stabbed the great giant. Blood gushed out from Ymir's corpse in unimaginable quantities. We're going to get into that. Fountains of blood as salt as the sea and the gray as the oceans gushed out in a flood so sudden, so powerful, and so deep that it swept away and drowned all the giants. Oh, another great flood. Only one giant, Bergelmir, Ymir's grandson and his wife survived by clambering onto a wooden box, which bore them like a boat. All the giants we see and we fear today are descended from them. Odin and his brother made the soil from Ymir's flesh. Ymir's bones they piled up into the mountains and cliffs. Our rocks and pebbles, the sand and gravel you see, these were Ymir's teeth, and the fragments of bones that were broken and crushed by Odin and Vili and V in their battle with Ymir. The seas, that girdle, the worlds, these were Ymir's blood and his sweat. Look up into the sky. You are looking at the inside of Ymir's skull. The stars you see at night, the planets, all the comets and shooting stars, these are the sparks that flew from the fires in Muspel, and the clouds you see by day. These were once Ymir's brains, and who knows what thoughts they were thinking even now. What does that sound like? What was the skull? Thought. Consciousness. Holographic projection. Firmament. Just ideas. The world is a flat disk, and the sea encircles the perimeter. Oh. Uh-oh. Giants live at the edges of the world. beside the deepest seas. To keep the giants at bay, Odin and Vili and V made a wall from Ymir's eyelashes and set it around the middle of the world. They called this place within the wall Midgard. That's Earth. That's where we are, guys. We're in Midgard. Midgard was empty. The lands were beautiful, but nobody walked the meadows or fished in the clear waters. Nobody explored the Rocky Mountains or stared up at the clouds. Odin and Vili and V knew that a world is not a world until it is inhabited. They wandered high and low, looking for people, and they found nothing. At last, on the rocky shingle at the edge of the sea, they found 2 logs, sea-tossed, that had floated there on the tides and been cast ashore. The first log was a log of ash wood. The ash tree is resilient and handsome, and its roots go deep. Its wood carves well and would not splinter or crack. Ash wood makes a good tool handle or shaft of a spear. The second log they found beside the first on the beach, so close to the first log they were almost touching, was a log of elm wood. The elm tree is graceful, but its wood is hard enough to be made into the toughest planks and beams. You could build a fine home or a hall from elm wood. The gods took the 2 logs. They set the logs so they were upright on the sand, the height of people. Odin held them, and one by one, he breathed life into them. No longer were they dead logs on a beach. Now they were alive. Vili gave them will. He gave them intelligence and drive. Now they could move, and they could want. V carved the logs. He gave them the shape of people. He carved their ears that they might hear, and their eyes so they might see, and lips that they might speak. The 2 logs stood on the beach, 2 naked people. V carved one with male genitals, and the other had carved female. The 3 brothers made clothes for the woman and the man to cover themselves and to keep them warm in the chilly sea spray on the beach at the edge of the world. Last of all, they gave the 2 people they had made names. They called the man Ask or Ash Tree. The woman they called Embla or Elm. Ask and Embla were the father and the mother of all of us. Every human being owes its life to its parents and their parents before them. Go far enough back, and the ancestors of each of us were Ask and Embla. Embla and Ask stayed in Midgard, safe behind the wall the gods had made from Ymir's eyelash. In Midgard, they would make their homes protected from giants and monsters and all the dangers that wait in the wastes. In Midgard, they could raise their children in peace. That is why Odin is called the All-Father, because he was the father of the gods, and because he breathed the breath of life into our grandparents and grandparents' grandparents. Whether we are gods or mortals, Odin is the father of all. Basic instructions before leaving Earth. I have to keep mentioning what Bible means. And that's not to be disrespectful. Just find it interesting. So this is Myths of the Norsemen from the Eddas and Sagas by H.A. Gruber. Yeah, not good. So I'm going to read a little bit from here. The beginning. Although the Aryan inhabitants of Northern Europe are supposed by some authorities to have come originally from the plateau of Iran in the heart of Asia, the climate and scenery of the countries where they finally settled had great influence in shaping their early religious beliefs, as well in ordering their mode of living. The grand and rugged landscapes of Northern Europe, the midnight sun, the flashing rays of the aurora borealis, the ocean and continually lashing itself into fury against the great cliffs and icebergs of the Arctic Circle could not but impress the people as vividly as the almost miraculous vegetation, the perpetual light, and the blue seas and skies of their brief summer season. It is no great wonder, therefore, that the Icelanders, for instance, to whom we owe the most perfect records of this brief, fancied in looking about them that the world was originally created from a stranger mix of fire and ice. Northern mythology is grand and tragical. Its principal theme is the perpetual struggle of the forces of nature against the injurious, and hence it is not graceful and idyllic in character, like the religion of the sunny South, where people could bask in perpetual sunshine and the fruits of the earth grew ready in their hand. It was very natural that the dangers incurred in hunting and fishing under these inclement skies and the suffering entailed by the long cold winters where the sun never shines made our ancestors contemplate the cold ice as malevolent spirits. And it was with equal reason they invoked with special fervor the beneficent influences of heat and light. When questioned concerning the creation of the world, the northern skalds or poets whose songs are preserved in the Eddas and Sagas declared that in the beginning, when there was no yet earth, nor sea, nor air, when darkness rested over all, there existed a powerful being called All-Father, who they dimly conceived as uncreated as well as unseen, and whatever he willed came to pass. Interesting. I had another surge, guys. I am sorry. It cuts off and it's weird, but I'm back. In the center of space, there was, in the morning of time, a great abyss called Gina, the cleft of clefts, the yawning gulf, whose depths no eye could fathom. as it was enveloped in perpetual twilight. North of this abode was a space or a world known as Nephilim, the home of mist and darkness, in the center of which bubbled an exhaustless spring, Herverglimir, the seething cauldron, whose water supplied 12 great streams, known as the Elvengar. So one book says 11, this one says 12. As the water of these streams flowed swiftly away from its source and encountered the cold blast from the yawning gulf, it soon hardened into huge blocks of ice, which rolled downward into the immeasurable depths of the great abyss with a continual roar like thunder. South of this dark chasm, directly opposite Nephilim, the realm of mist, was another world called Muspelheim, the home of eternal fire, where all the warmth and brightness and whose frontiers were gradually guarded by Surtur, the flame giant. This giant fiercely brandished his flaming sword and continually set forth great showers of sparks, which fell with a hissing sound upon ice blocks in the bottom of the abyss and partly melted them by their heart. As the stream rose in clouds, it again encountered the prevailing cold, and it was changed into rime or hoarfrost, which layer by layer filled up with great center space. Thus, by continual action of cold and heat, and also probably by the will of uncreated and unseen, a gigantic creature called Ymir, seething clay, and the personification of the frozen ocean, came to life amid the ice blocks in the abyss. And as he was born of rime, he was called Hirimthurs, or ice giant. Groping about in the gloom in search of something to eat, Ymir perceived a gigantic cow called Audhumla, the nourisher, which had been created by the same agency as himself. And out of the same materials. This is what I get it, guys. Like, hear me out. I'm going to connect the Enuma Elish to this, I promise. Reason why I'm reading this is I want you to make some connections to what you already know about the books that you were brought up with. Now, there's very interesting words in both of these descriptions of the same story. The agency, by the same agency. So in the case of Enoch, text, the agency, the administration of creator, the offices. So there is order in the grand scheme of things. That's why, but this is why I wanted to point this stuff out. The agency, just like there's an office of the Christos, office of the Christ, their administrations, their creator gods, their lower beings, there's upper creation, there's lower creation. This all ties in. Now I lost my place where I was. Hastening towards her, Ymir noticed with pleasure that from her udder flowed 4 great streams of milk, which would supply ample nourishment. All his wants were thus satisfied, but the cow, looking about her for food, in her turn began to lick the salt off neighboring ice blocks with her rough tongue. This she continued to do until first hair of a god appeared, and then whole head emerged of a god appeared, and then the whole head emerged from the icy envelope, until by and by Burr, the producer, stepped forth entirely free. While the cow had been disengaged, Ymir giant had fallen asleep, and as he slept, a son and daughter were born from the perspiration under his armpit, and his feet produced the 6-headed giant Thurgoodlimir, who shortly after his birth brought forth in his turn the giant Berglamir, from whom all evil frost giants are descended. Evil. I'm going to skip a little bit. It talks about Odin and Billy and Veer. But this is an interesting one. The creation of Earth. Here he took up his abode, calling the place Jotunheim, the home of the giants. And he begot a new race of frost giants who inherited his dislikes, continued the feud, and were always ready to sally forth from their desolate country and raid the territory of the gods. The gods in the northern mythology called Aesir, pillars and supporters of the world, having thus triumphed over their foes and being no longer engaged in perpetual warfare, now began to look about them with intent to improve the desolate aspect of things and fashion a habitable world. After due consideration, Bor's son rolled Ymir's great corpse into the yawning abyss and began to create the world out of its various component parts. Out of the flesh, they fashioned Midgard, Middle Garden, as the earth was called. This was placed in the exact center of the vast space and hedged all around with Ymir's eyebrows for bulwarks or ramparts. The solid portion of Midgard was surrounded by the giant's blood or sweat, which formed the ocean, while his bones made the hills, his flat teeth the cliffs, and his curly hair the trees and all vegetation. Well pleased with the results of their first efforts at creation, the gods now took the giant's unwieldy skull and posed it skillfully as the vaulted heavens above, earth and sea, then scattered his brains throughout the expanse beneath. They fashioned from them the fleecy clouds. Interesting, right? Now, this is like notes I took from beginning of this, because there's 7 tablets. This is volume 1 and 2. Enuma Elish, 7 tablets of creation. The poem embodies the beliefs of the Babylonians and Assyrians concerning the origin of the universe. It describes the coming forth of the gods from chaos and tells the story of how the forces of disorder, represented by the primeval water gods, Aspu and Tiamat, were overthrown by Ea and Marduk, respectively, and how Marduk, after completing the triumph of the gods over chaos, proceeded to create the world and man. Ea and not Marduk is the hero of earlier episodes of creation story. So there's like a huge debate about, like, they had the tablets and then they found different, there's so many interpretations, so just bear with the facts of whatever they're trying to present. The new fragments of the text show, moreover, that it was Aspu and not Tiamat who began the rebellion against the gods. While the newly created gods represented birth of order and the system in the universe, Aspu and Tiamat still remained in confusion and undiminished in might. Aspu, however, finding that his slothfulness was disturbed by the new order of beings whom he had begotten, the summoned Mumau. I can't with names. Mamu, I'm just going to call it that, his ministry, and two went together to Tiamat and lying down before her, took counsel with her regarding the means to be adopted to restore the old order of things. It may be noted that the text contains no direct statement that it was the creation of light which caused the rebellion of the primeval gods. The Norse, Lyran Palladians, Anunnaki, Cedars, this is from the introduction. The Great Assyrian Poem, or series of legends, which narrates the story of the creation of the world of man, was termed by the Assyrians and Babylonians Enuma Elish. When in the height from the two opening words of the text, the poem consisted of some 994 lines and was divided into 7 sections, each of which was inscribed upon a separate tablet. The tablets were numbered by the Assyrian scribes, and the separate sections of the poem were written upon them, do not vary very much in length. Oh, my body. The shortest tablet contains 138 lines and the longest 146. The average length of a tablet being about 142 lines. The poem embodies the beliefs of the Babylonians and Assyrians concerning the origin of the universe. It describes the coming forth of the gods from chaos and tells the story of how the forces of disorder, represented by the primeval water gods Aspu and Tiamat, were overthrown by Ea and Marduk, respectively. And kind of repeating what I just read, but and how Marduk, after completing the triumph of the gods over chaos, proceeded to create the world of man. The poem is known to us from portions of several Assyrian and late Babylonian copies of the work, and from extracts from it written out upon the so-called practice tablets or student exercises by pupils of Babylonian scribes. Apostles? The Assyrian copies of the work are from the Great Library, which was founded at Negev by Anshur Bani Pal, king of Assyria from BC 668 to about BC 626. The Babylonian copies and extracts were inscribed during the period of the kings of the Neo-Babylonian and Persian periods, and one copy of the seventh tablet may probably be assigned to as late a date as the period of the Arsacide. I don't know. All the tablets and fragments, which here hetero been identified and as inscribed with portions of the text of a poem, are preserved in the British Museum. The actual account of the creation of the world by Marduk, as related in the creation series, begins towards the end of the fourth tablet, where the narrative closely agrees with the summary from Berosus. Marduk is there related to have split Tiamat into halves and to have used one half of her as a covering for heaven. The text then goes on to state that he founded heaven, which is termed Ishara, a mansion like unto the deep in structure, and that he caused Anu, Bel, and Ea to inhabit their respective districts therein. He's of Enoch, house of many mansions. Connections much? Split Tiamat into halves. Kill Ymir and take his body to form the planet. See where I'm going with this, guys? See it? See it? I know you're with me. There's the links. Okay. Linking. The fifth tablet does not begin with the account of the creation of Earth, but records the fixing of the constellations, of the constellations of the zodiac, the founding of the year, and Marduk's charge to the moon god and the sun god, to former of whom he entrusted the night, his instructions relating to the phases of the moon and the relative positions of the moon and the sun during the month. What I didn't touch in the Norse mythologies, they do almost the same exact thing. There's interpretation of the moon and the sun by wolves chasing chariots and the cycles and all that. I didn't get into that. But similar story here. Oh, here she comes again. Hi, Mama. Say hi to everybody. Say hi. Hi. You have a lot of eye gunk. Can I read to my friends? Can I read to my friends? I don't want you to butt in everybody's face. Say hi. I'm going to pause 2 seconds, guys. I'm back. Morgan fled over there. The new fragments of the 5th tablet contain some interesting variants to this portion of the text, but with the exception of the last few lines of the text, they throw no light on what is missing portions of the tablet contained. In view, however, of the statement of Berosus that from one half of Tiamat, Bel formed the earth, we may conjecture that an account of the creation of the earth occurred upon some part of the 5th tablet. It is also probable that the 5th tablet recorded the creation of vegetation. Correlation? That this formed the subject of some portion of the poem in certain from the opening lines of the 7th tablet, where Marduk is hailed as Asari, bestower of planting, founder of sowing, creator of grain and plants, who caused the green herb to spring up, and the creation of plants and herbs would naturally follow that of the earth. From the new fragment of the 6th tablet, we know that this portion of the poem related the story of the creation of man. The beginning of his work of creation, Marduk is said to have devised a cunning plan. While gazing upon the dead body of Tiamat, so now, before proceeding to man's creation, it is said that his heart prompted him and he devised a cunning plan. In the repetition of this phrase, we may see an indication of the importance which was ascribed to this portion of the story, and it's probable that the creation of man was regarded as the culmination of Marduk's creative work. It is interesting to note, however, that the creation of man is not related as a natural sequel to the formation of the rest of the universe, but forms the solution of a difficulty with which Marduk has been met in some course of his work as creator. To overcome this difficulty, Marduk devised the cunning plan already referred to. The context of this passage is not very clear, but the reason for man's creation may be gathered from certain indications in the next text. We learn from the beginning of 6th tablet that Marduk devised his cunning plan after he had heard the word of the gods. And from this is clear that the 5th tablet ends with the speech of the gods. Now in tablet 6, 1.8, Marduk states that he will create man, that the service of gods may be established. However, he adds that he will change the ways of the gods, and he appears to threaten them with punishment. It may be conjectured, therefore, that after Marduk had completed had created the creation of world, the gods came to him and complained that there were no shrines built in their honor, nor there were any to worship them. To supply this need, Marduk formed the device of creating man, but at the same time, he appears to have decided to vent his wrath upon the gods because of their discontent. It is possible, however, that Ea dissuaded Marduk from punishing the gods, though he no doubt assisted him in carrying out the first part of his proposal. Ragnarok, Loki. Satan. The sixth tablet, Marduk indicates the means that he will employ for forming man, and this portion of the text corroborates in a remarkable manner the account given by Berosus of the method employed by Bel for man's creation. Someone is thinking of me. My nose is super, 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 super itchy. It's really annoying now. Sorry, guys. The text of the summary from Berosus is in the form in which it had come down to us, is not quite satisfactory, as the course of the narrative is confused. The confusion is apparent in the repetition of description of man's creation and in interruption of the naturalistic explanation of the slaying of Amorka as ingenious but simple emanation of the text, however, was suggested by von Gutschmidt, which removes both these difficulties. The passage which interrupts the naturalistic explanation currently describes a first creation of man, he regarded as having been transposed. But if it is in place at the end of the exact, it falls naturally into place as a summary by Eusebius of the preceding account of man's creation, which is said by Alexander Polyhistor to have been given by below. Basically, all these people are like trying to piece together what's going on. Okay, so remember the blood part of how Earth was formed? In of the sixth tablet, however, Marduk states that he will use his own blood for creating man. The text of this passage from Berosus is thus shown to be correct and follows that the account which he gave of the Babylonian beliefs concerning man's creation does not require to be amended or explained away. We may therefore conclude that it was Ea who beheaded Marduk at his request, and according to his instructions, formed mankind from his blood. Ea may thus have performed the actual work of making man, but he acted under Marduk's direction. And it was clear from Tablet 7 that Marduk and not Ea was regarded as man's creator. The new fragment of the sixth tablet does not mention the mixing of the blood with earth, but it's quite possible that this detail was recounted in the subsequent narrative. On the other hand, in the Babylonian poem, Marduk declares that in addition to using his own blood, he will create bone for forming man. Berosus makes no mention of bone, but it's interesting to note that Isimuti, the Assyrian word used for bone, is doubtless the equivalent of the Hebrew word isem, bone, which occurs at the end of the narrative of the creation of woman. The blood of Bel, according to Berosus, was employed not only in man's creation, but in of animals also. And it is possible that this represents the form of the legend as it was preserved upon the sixth tablet. Though in that case, the creation of animals would follow that of man. The opening lines of the sixth tablet prove that man's creation was regarded as the culmination of Marduk's creative work. The cunning plan which Marduk devised in order to furnish worshippers for the gods, concern the creation of man, and if the animals followed, it must have been recorded as a subsidiary and less important. Let's have a little timeout powwow. Who should be bowing to whom? It sounds very much like evil. To be worshipped. Almost there, guys, I promise. By these titles of honor, the gods are represented as conferring supreme power over Marduk, and the climax is reached in the seventh tablet when the elder Bel and Ea, Marduk's father, conferred their own names and power upon him. Marduk's name of Hansha 50, by which he is finally addressed, in itself sums up and symbolizes his 50 titles. At the conclusion of these addresses, there follows an epilogue of 18 lines in which the study of the poem is commended to mankind and prosperity is promised to those that rejoice in Marduk and keep his works in remembrance. The story of the creation in the form in which it has come down to us upon tablets of the 7th and later centuries before Christ is of a distinctly composite character and bears traces of long process of editing and modification at the hands of the Babylonian priests. Five principal strains may be traced, which have been combined to form the poem. These may be described as 1, the birth of the gods, 2, the legend of Ea and Aspu, 3, the dragon myth, 4, the actual account of creation, and 5, the hymn of Marduk under his 50 titles. Since the poem in its present form is a glorification of Marduk as the champion of the gods and creator of the world, it is natural that more prominence should be given to episodes in which Marduk is the hero than is assigned to other portions of the narrative in which he plays no part. I'm skipping around a bunch more. The evidence furnished by these recently discovered tablets with regard to the date of Babylonian legends in general may be applied to the date of the creation legends. While the origin of much of the creation legends may be traced to Sumerian sources, it is clear that the Semitic inhabitants of Mesopotamia at a very early period produced their own versions of the compositions which they borrowed, modifying and augmenting them to suit their own legends and beliefs. The connection of Marduk with the dragon myth and with the stories of the creation of the world and man may be considered probably be assigned to the subsequent period during which Babylon generally obtained to the position of the principal city of Mesopotamia. On tablets inscribed during the regions of kings of the first dynasty, We may therefore expect to find copies of the creation legends corresponding closely with the text of the series Enuma Elish. It is possible that the division of the poem into 7 sections inscribed upon separate tablets took place at a later period, but be this as it may, we may conclude with a considerable degree of confidence that the bulk of the poem, as we know it from late Assyrian and Neo-Babylonian copies, were composed at the period not later than BC 2000. The political influence which the Babylonians exerted over neighboring nations during long periods of their history was considerable, and it is not surprising that their beliefs concerning the origin of the universe should have been partially adopted by races with whom they came into contact. The Babylonian elements may be traced in the Phoenician cosmogony, has long been admitted, but the imperfect and probable distorted form in which the latter has come down to us renders uncertain any comparison of details. Some of the beliefs concerning the creation of the world were current among the Egyptians, bear a more striking resemblance to the corresponding legends of Babylonia. Whether this resemblance was due to the Proto-Semitic strain, which probably existed in ancient Egyptian race, or is to be explained as a result of later Babylonian influence from without, is yet certain. But whatever the explanation be adopted, it is clear that the conception of chaos as a watery mass out of which came forth successive generations of primeval gods is common to both races. It is in Hebrew literature, however, that most striking examples of influence of the Babylonian creation legends are found. The close relation existing between the Babylonian creation and the narrative in Genesis has been recognized from the time of the first discovery of the former, and the old and new points of resemblance between them may here be briefly discussed. According to each account, the existence of a watery chaos preceded the creation of the universe. Oh boy. The Hebrew word tohom, sorry if I'm saying that wrong, translated the deep in Genesis, is the equivalent of the Babylonian Tiamat, the monster of the deep, personifying chaos and confusion. In the details of the creation, there is also close resemblance between two accounts. In the Hebrew narrative, the first act of creation is that of light. And it has been suggested that a parallel possibly existed in Babylonian account, and that the creation of light may have been the cause of the revolt of Tiamat. From the new fragments of the poems, we now know that the rebellion of the forces of disorder, which was incited by Apsu and not Tiamat, was due not to the creation of light, but to his hatred of the way of the gods, which produced order in the places of chaos. Lucifer Rebellion, anybody? Lucifer Rebellion, guys. A parallelism may still be found, however, in the original form of Babylonian myth, according to which the conqueror of the dragon was undoubtedly a solar deity. Moreover, as has been pointed out above, day and night are vaguely conceived in the poem as already in existence at the time of Aspu's revolt, so that the belief in the existence of light before the creation of the heavenly bodies is a common feature of the Hebrew and the Babylonian account. The second act of creation in the Hebrew narrative is that of a firmament, which divided the waters that were under the firmament from the waters that were above the firmament. In the Babylonian poem, the body of Tiamat is divided by Marduk, and from one half of her, he formed a covering or a dome for heaven, a firmament which kept her upper waters in place. Ymir's eyelashes. Moreover, on the fragment, we find mention of Tiamat Iliti and Tiamat Sepiliti, that is an upper Tiamat or ocean and the lower Tiamat or ocean, which are the exact equivalents of waters above and under the firmament. I'm going to leave that there. The creation stories are all very similar. And one must have to think, how did the Norse, and yes, these people traversed across the world, and not given that much credit because they discovered a lot of places, and not discovered, they like founded. I mean, people already inhabited all the planet. They were reaching places though for a long time, but their ancestors had those stories. They had no idea what was going down south. They had zero clue what was going on down south. Zero. So how are these stories created in the first place? Why are they all similar? It's very interesting to read other cultures' origin stories of the planet and how we became. It gives us keys to what our ancestors were thinking, whether or not things were manipulated or not, and they definitely absolutely were. Finding the components to each and the similarities to each will all help a larger narrative to come together. Not one culture's story is absolutely correct, and there's no absolute truth yet to be found. And I'm only saying that because the components of our galactic friends weren't there. They were depicted. I mean, Tiamat used to be another planet from a lot of other people's perspectives. And then we have Atlantis and Lemuria and Mu. I mean, there's a lot going on. A lot. But I'm going to leave it there. I wanted to simmer a little bit with everybody that the firmament, skulls, blood, all this stuff is shadowed in other people's holy scriptures. Let's just say that. And what we could take away is that a lot of the origin stories of the planet is very similar, divided by oceans, land and sea, and deserts and rainforests. They all have components of being similar. And it's very interesting. I find it very interesting. I know the holiday shipping and shopping is bananas, but I make really fun stuff. Really good vibes. Ring holder. Really fun stuff I make, guys. If you're interested, please check me out on Facebook. I really am trying to grow. See? I'm trying to grow my art. I want everybody to have good vibes because that's what we need moving into the new world, and bring some art and being creative to all. So if you, I know this was a very long one. If you're still here, thank you so much. Please like, share, and subscribe to help me grow this channel, help everybody kind of get a grasp of topics that we need to all start tackling, because we really, even if it's mythology, even if you don't think that's absolutely like the real deal, it's still worth investigating because it all ties into our origins, and we need to know the truth about what happened, how we got here. We've been lied to, and we need to uncover these truths. Whether they come from myths, stories, there is something to all of this. And I find it really interesting, to say the least. That's why I'm covering it. But if you like anything, please give me comments. I love comments. Please email me. A few people commented but emailed me that their comment was like tagged, that it wasn't showing up. The censor police is out. So if it doesn't, if the comments don't show up, please email me. I love to talk to people. I'm in my little isolated bubble for a reason, but I love people, don't worry. I will comment. I'm sending all love and light. Please have a great weekend. If you have a beginning story or origin story, I have a lot of books. There's a lot of books that I don't have in my possession. And because of mandates and things here, accessing those places, I don't have money either. like library, they don't really have a lot of good of these goodie books. But if there's a PDF that won't overwhelm my computer's capacity to have it, please link me some stuff for other cultures and your beginning stories, because there's a tie to all of this, and I would love to tackle other cultures and their beginning stories. And I will go more in depth with the Enuma Elish because it ties in a lot, and this is a growing topic. I just wanted to do like a beginning. Okay. If you like my work and want to help me out, knowing what I've been going through, please PayPal me. That'd be great. Everything will be down in the comment section, in the little description box. Paypal.me/AllyKatzkreations211. Venmo at AllyKatzkreations211. You can email me at AllyKatzkreations211. I don't know why I say that all the time. At gmail.com. Find me on Facebook if you're interested. With my creation store, I post some other all my videos that I post. AllyKatzkreations211. On Instagram, I put a little bit more tweaky fun at AllyKatzkreations. I'm sending you all love and light. Thank you, guys. Until next time.